Friends, I hope you're enjoying the springtime weather that we're having. You know, since we talked last week about soapboxes, let's talk now about what I call the more enduring version, stump speeches. Soapboxes were more common in urban areas with more people, so the speaker could move their soapbox from place to place. Stumps, by their very nature, are much more rural and much less mobile. While a soapbox is taken to the people, a stump requires the people to come to it. And to get people to come hear your stump speech, both the speaker and the message had to be worthwhile. In early America, as more people pioneered the land, establishing homes, farms, and communities, one of the earliest places where large groups gathered was the camp meeting. The earliest camp meetings, which always included the Methodists, were held in areas where trees had been cut down so people could see and hear the speaker or preacher. Sometimes the only platform for preachers was to preach on was a tree stump. But most camp meetings began offering more elevated spaces, from a wagon to a wooden platform, even a two-level pulpit platform with a roof covering the preacher. There's so much about history, about the when and the how and the where of camp meetings, but my concern is the why. Why did camp meetings happen? Why did they matter? Why were they important enough for so many people to walk for miles, then spend 2, 3, or more nights in a tent in the middle of the wilderness? Why? It was the message of Easter, of how the resurrection of Jesus changes everything in life. People began realizing that nothing was more important than Jesus. People began to hear about the great message of Easter. And because the Methodists played such a pivotal role, those gathered would hear about and sing about and gather in small groups where they would teach one another about our great faith. Easter's message became important enough for them to more regularly gather and to more permanently construct their stumps. Trees that had been cut down soon became logs out of which buildings were built for a more lasting place to gather and soon be labeled as a church. Now, over the past 200 years, stump speeches have become more closely akin to political candidates. But again, stump speeches is not my concern. I'm more concerned about what's happened to Christ Church and to us as Methodists. We've seen decline in so many areas of Christianity and Methodism. I can't speak for all of Christianity's declines in America. That's above my pay grade and education level. But after spending the last 30 years in Methodism, I can say that we do a wonderful job on the how, when, and wheres of our faith. Our ability to analyze and to organize, to have so many who, like John Wesley, can make things more methodical, and so many like Charles Wesley who can make things more rhythmical, we have mastered the hows, whens, and whys. But it seems to me we've invested an abundance of energy into one cause and then another, sometimes pushing and sometimes being pushed to choose sides on issues. And as we pursued all those causes, what we call social issues, we've done well with the how, the when, and the where. But often, far too often, we've lost sight of the gigantic why of Easter. Most of you have heard me quote my favorite Christian writer in today's church. Nicholas Thomas, or N.T. Wright, has been priest, professor, bishop, and author of over 70 books. One of his more recent works, The Resurrection of the Son of God, is considered by many clergy and theologians to be a groundbreaking Christian work on the resurrection of the historical Jesus. That book's title and my favorite quote are all about the why of camp meetings and the early Methodist movement. The quote is this: "The resurrection of Jesus Christ is either the greatest truth in the history of the world, or it is the most dangerous form of nonsense ever concocted. There is no in-between." And I always add, too many people have lived for and too many people have died for this message for it to fall somewhere in between. We must stop living as if our faith has a shutoff valve like a kitchen sink. We can no longer pretend that Easter faith is something we can turn on when we're thirsty and turn off when we have somewhere else to go or something else to do. No, friend, the living waters of Jesus' life and teachings, and especially this week, the living waters of His death and resurrection, have no shutoff valve. This living water is either flowing into us or it is not. And if it is flowing into us, it will be flowing both into and through us into others. May you spend this Holy Week wrestling with the gravity of Christ's death and resurrection. And may that wrestling bring about an Easter faith which gives you and us all reason to possess the greatest stump speech of all time and to live out that faith actively in Christ's church, day in and day out.
Dark midnight was my cry. Dark midnight was my cry. Dark midnight was my cry. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. To die, oh, and when I comes to die, oh, when I comes to die, give me Jesus, give me Jesus. Jesus, you may have all of this world. Give me Jesus. Nobody but Jesus. Give me Jesus.